Those were the days.
Hey everyone, Justin Lee Howard here with another edition of Those Were the Days Extended. And today we're actually going to do a little bit of a deep dive into one of my favorite relationships. This one is actually not romantic, but it is between a friendship, specifically between the friendship of Nicole Walker and Chloe Lane. And what sort of sent me down this path was first, I'm going to take you guys back to where am I? Here we are. Take you back to October 29th, 2011. And this was when Nadia Bjorlin had ended her second run at Days. And the second one was about 4 years, 2008, 9, 10, and then sort of capped it off at the end of October for 2011. And she would later come back in 2013. But what sort of set me on the path of the Nicole and sort of Chloe friendship to kind of explore, because I've done other videos on Nicole specifically and her love life and her history. And then of course I've done ones on Chloe and the Last Blast crew, but I kind of wanted to focus on these two, Nicole and Chloe, just because I think this is a friendship that Days has done exceptionally well over the years, especially where these two came from, and we'll get into that a little bit later with the history of these two, but it is one that, like I said, Days has done exceptionally well over the years, that has kept up and has figured out an interesting way to give them conflict to where, everything can't be always amazingly perfect with them. So I think when they've had the chance to have conflict with each other, it's been incredibly realistic and incredibly compelling and interesting to watch. So yeah, I kind of thought, well, why not do one on Nicole and Chloe? Because this is, like I said, one of my favorite relationships in the show in general, with the way that it's been explored and how we've seen it over the years progress. So yeah, kind of wanted to start there, and I picked that how it coincides with Chloe's second run is most of that friendship was built during that 4-year time period that Nadia Bjorlin had come back and reprised the role of Chloe after she had originally left with Kyle Lauder years earlier. And so yeah, I kind of wanted to focus on those years where that's when their friendship was sort of solidified in a really interesting way. I think nobody was looking for these two characters to be best friends or to form a friendship with the history that they had, and I think it really surprised viewers, and it surprised them in an interesting way, and it sort of signified a changing for both characters. I like to say, when people sort of meet in the middle, it can be really interesting. But Chloe became a little bit more of a more complicated / darker character, and Nicole sort of settled into maybe who she wanted to be. She's always been a bit of a grayish character, and so kind of them, I think, meeting in the middle is what allowed sort of these two characters, who before that had this tumultuous relationship, kind of come together and actually be one of, I think, the best examples of friendship that Days has produced in the last 15 years. So yeah, big kudos to them. But yeah, I kind of want to start in the beginning. And it all kind of starts around, of course, a man. Why else would these two women be fighting? And oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, that's the right one. If you guys remember, this kind of started when they decided to put Brady and Nicole and Chloe sort of in the same orbit. If you remember, at this time that this was happening, Eric had just left town and sort of left Nicole by herself. Of course, the fake arranged marriage with Lucas did not work out so well, so Nicole sort of found herself on the outs here. This is sort of at the time she was kind of getting with Victor and realizing kind of what she can gain from being married to someone like that. On the flip side, Brady and Chloe were sort of together, kind of going through their ups and downs after they got together, after things had fizzled with her and Philip. And so at this particular time, because Nicole was with Victor, who was so, those years of Nicole and Victor was, I know some people find them really entertaining and thought, John Aniston did a great job, which he did, and Ari did too. But I just, those for me are some of the not worst years of the show. vehemently disliked the character of Victor back then. I thought they went a little bit too far with his cruelty towards Nicole and borderline on abuse. But again, that's where they went with the that's sort of where they were going with the storyline, and it was a different time then, and maybe we viewed it a little, I don't know, people viewed it a little differently, but I don't know, that sort of time period when she was with Victor and he was just incredibly cruel to her and borderline abusive, just didn't always sit right with me. And one of the ways that they had the character Nicole deal with that is Brady had sort of become her confidant in that, because Brady was spending a lot of time under Victor's tutelage with I think at this time he may or may not have been with Basic Black yet, or he was going back and forth between being sort of mentored to sort of take over Titan, or at least establish his career in Titan. So yeah, he was around a lot. Nicole was confiding in him a lot. He was like her saving grace, her confidant, a good friend. She started to develop feelings. Brady was always on the surface because he did have, he was sort of going back and forth with his issues with Chloe. And if you remember at the time, Chloe was involved in an accident and was sort of disfigured. And she actually pretended to be dead because she had all these sort of scars on her face. And this is sort of part of that. You'll see in this photo here. This photo here is also very reminiscent. It's sort of a play on the Phantom of the Opera, because if you remember, one of the things that bonded Chloe and Brady when they came together, sort of he was, the Salem bad boy just coming back from reform school trying to rehab his image, and she was former Ghoul Girl who, relationship with Philip had fizzled, and she was sort of trying to find her place now and who she was, and these two characters sort of came together. And one of the things they bonded over was singing, specifically opera. And so when they did this storyline of her being disfigured and pretending she was dead, but also keeping an eye on Brady and wanted to not control, but keep tabs on him essentially. And so here you see her in sort of this hooded cloak, and it's very sort of reminiscent of Phantom of the Opera. I think this particular picture you're seeing, I think, is when Brady found her, or suspected it was her, or suspected someone was watching him and almost came upon her. I forget which part in the storyline this was, but anyway, Chloe was hurt, disfigured. She was good. Nicole actually knew about it. I forget how she found out about it, and she actually kept it a secret. And I think she sort of was sort of kind of egging the situation on with Chloe, pretending to be dead and keeping it a secret and not telling Brady where she was, and kind of going along with it to sort of aid her own benefit. At this point, she's still married to Victor, but also developing these strong feelings for Brady, and thinking Brady is going to be her savior in this situation and kind of her white knight, and this is who she really should be with and not his grandfather. And so, yeah, it set up this interesting sort of rivalry with them, and things sort of even came to a head where Nicole even hired Stan, who we covered in last week's Those Were Days Extended. She actually, one of Stan's tasks was that Nicole wanted him as in Stan, as in Sammy, to put this flesh-eating bacteria on one of the scalpels that they were going to use during Chloe's surgery to sort of fix her scars. And then that became an issue. That's something that they found out about. Brady found out about it, swore, after he eventually found out Chloe was alive, they found out what Nicole did. He sort of swore off Nicole. She was devastated. This, of course, angered Chloe because she thought Nicole was sort of being a little bit of a friend or confidant in keeping her secret and keeping her hidden, essentially. But it blew up in Nicole's face. Brady but swore her off, and then it sort of ignited this feud, we'll say, between Chloe and Nicole. Eventually, if you remember, John, I think, is the one who got Chloe her surgery, fixed her scars. Brady and her worked on their relationship. They eventually got married and left town. Both of them left town sort of furious with Nicole, what she had done, and trying to come in between them. And that's sort of, how the feud, the hatred between these three people sort of started. It eventually subsided when Chloe and Brady, of course, came back. They were in their own trouble. They came back sort of as a divorced couple. And this is where those intervening years that we talked about, where Chloe finished up her second run, this is where her and Nicole actually really started bonding with each other. They actually both found themselves dating exes of Sammy, and this is a little bit more of a recent picture, but I just want to show sort of their bond here, and what sort of brought them together was that Chloe at the time was starting a relationship with Lucas, and Nicole found herself with EJ, and I think they were very suspicious of Sammy and what she was going to do next. I think at the time, Sammy, of course, always oscillating between EJ and Lucas, and it sort of made Chloe and Nicole very uneasy because they know that these two men that they are with and they are starting these relationships with, which mean a lot to them, that they can easily become second choice compared to Sammy if she wanted to pull sort of any of her shenanigans. So that's what kind of got these two former enemies just on the same page, and then they just started talking with each other and started bonding over that, and really found themselves in each other's corners. If you remember, both of them were maids of honor for each other, and when Chloe married Lucas, Nicole was a maid of honor. When Nicole married EJ, Chloe was the maid of honor, and it just spent the next few years sort of building and strengthening their friendship. Also, at the time, we know a little bit before this, Chloe was going through her own issues of feeling like she was the outcast of Salem, and the stuff she went through with Vivian and Quinn and all that stuff. And Nicole was very much a big support during that time. So this is sort of these were sort of the intervening years of these two sort of coming together. And a lot of their storyline was based on yes, they're romantic partners, but also having this incredibly deep friendship that was bonding, which sort of came out of nowhere. I think when Chloe came back and her and Brady were done, I think the thought was, okay, well, maybe if Nicole is with Brady at the time, are they going to reignite this this sort of romantic triangle here, or are they going to have them go at each other just from their history or not? And I think it was such a clever and interesting way to go, was to not keep that up and actually make them best friends. Another way to go would have just sort of made them cordial, but sort of putting them really together and deciding to give each of them someone to really lean on. And I think both of them needed it at the time. As you remember, Brady and Nicole were sort of on the outs, and they've been lifelong friends. So Nicole really didn't have anyone. And then Chloe, of course, at this point, the Last Blast crew was sort of disbanded, and she really is one of the only few left in town, I believe. I think at this time, Sean and Belle are still away with Claire, so they're not in town. So it really forced sort of Chloe and Nicole to come together and to establish this inevitable sort of friendship, which carries them until this day. So yeah, really interesting sort of out of the box way to take these two characters that I think no one really saw coming, and no one thought, oh, we're gonna make Chloe and Nicole best friends, which would have been unheard of a few years later. But like all good friendships, there has to be some sort of drama with these two. They can't just, lovingly skip through life together. And one of the ways they did that, like I said earlier, in a very sort of interesting way, was they added, oh God, sorry guys, there we go. Here we go. They decided to add a baby to the mix. And I thought this was such an interesting way to give these two people conflict. You guys remember, at the time, Deimos was a really big part of the story. He was sort of, he was like basically three-timing all these women. He was juggling Chloe, whom he kept his true identity from, had given her a fake name and a fake history. So he was kind of seeing her. Then he was also seeing Kate and Nicole was in the mix. And of course, we know the relationship with Deimos and Nicole was traumatic at best, because she looked like his old love, Helena, and that's what messed up him and Victor in the first place, and that sort of all saga. But one of the things that came out of it was we got this reveal, and at this time in the storyline, Daniel had already been killed in the car accident. And so it was this reveal when Chloe came back to town that her and that Nicole and Daniel had basically went to um, Chloe and asked her if she would be a surrogate for them because they really want to have the baby. Nicole has struggled with fertility issues over the years. We know that. And so I remember even watching those scenes, and it was such a big surprise where they did. Of course, Daniel is dead, and they had got they had got Sean Christian to come back and reprise Daniel for these scenes, and they shot it in sort of flashback mode where he sort of reveals. Uh, um, uh, Sorry, hope you guys are seeing this. It looks a little wonky on my end, but I think it's just my computer. Hopefully, you guys are seeing it the correct way with the picture still up there. But anyway, they shot it as like this flashback that Daniel and Nicole and Chloe were all going to these fertility clinics together, and she was participating and she was happy for them. And it just sparked this really interesting dynamic in the friendship. Not only was it a testament to how far Chloe and Nicole have come as friends in their bond now that she is now going to carry their baby, but we also know the opposite of that was how far Chloe and Daniel have come. They've had their own trouble history. Of course, they have a child too in Parker, making this new child, which eventually would be Holly, making her, of course, sister to Parker. So these two best friends, now their children are siblings. But also it showed how far they've become. We know right before this, in the intervening years, Chloe and Daniel have gone back and forth. They went from having an affair to producing a child to trying to make their marriage work. It didn't, to Chloe coming back as a bit of a darker character and trying to steal Daniel from Jennifer and all that saga, for them to come full circle now where Nicole and Daniel are together planning a future, engaged, and they're asking Chloe to be their surrogate is just sort of wild when you think of it. It's just amazing, really great storytelling and a great way to weave and strengthen the bond between these two characters, Chloe and Nicole, but also inspire casting to sort of bring Daniel back and include this storyline and still be able to do it even though they had killed his character off. And of course, we sort of remember how that went. This is where the conflict came in, where Nicole had decided to pursue a relationship with Deimos. Chloe, of course, was pregnant with Holly. Chloe did not want to turn over Holly to Nicole because she was with Deimos. Nicole was sticking by Deimos, and it caused a rift in their friendship. And they decided to have this big custody battle. And in an interesting change of fate, the judge unanimously awarded Chloe custody, and she was custody of Holly for the first almost a year, I think. By the time all this played out, at least for the first 6 to 8 months of her life, we know that Nicole eventually did get Holly back. And then in another interesting twist of fate, once Nicole and Chloe had sort of repaired their relationship, Chloe ends up back with Holly again because after Nicole was killed in the warehouse fire in Nashville, because of their friendship, Nicole had listed Chloe as the godparent and who she wanted Holly to be raised by. And it created, again, another custody battle with Eric at the time, who was with Nicole and building a future. And he thought he should have Holly, and Chloe thought she should honor Nicole's wishes. And she really wanted Holly based on the bond she had with being the surrogate and also being the best friend. And so, and it ended up as we saw in an interesting way with Holly, with being raised by Chloe with Parker in sort of the DeMira mansion, because Chloe at the time was starting something with Stefan, and he had sort of invited them to move in, so they grew up there. So yeah, just kind of wanted to do a little trip down memory lane with these two. Again, like I said, it's one of my favorite relationships on the show. I think it has been written so incredibly well over the years. And I say surprisingly, not in the sense of talent, but in the sense that we've had different iterations of producers and writers over the years. So it's not like one person has carried this friendship throughout the last 15, almost 20 years, but it's been they've always approached it in a really interesting, realistic way, from them to, having their sort of really soapy, complicated history revolving a man, to then bringing that over to them meeting more as sort of older women, sort of coming together and realizing that they have a lot more in common than they thought, and really building something solid and foundational. To, again, we want to mix in a little conflict. Let's mix in conflict that makes sense for these two, and let's make it over the love of children and their commitment to being mothers, and how far each of them is willing to take it, and sort of even fight each other for this child who's actually Holly. So yeah, their friendship is not over. They are still the best of friends, even though neither one of them are on the show at the moment. I would like to see the character of Nicole come back. Of course, we are always happy to see Nadia Bjorlin come back as Chloe. Wish she would come back permanently, but yeah, I think we have a lot more to mine with both these characters, and I'd love to see them with. We haven't seen Nadia Bjorlin's Chloe with the grown-up Holly, so I'd love to see like a version of that relationship and how they interact with each other. They mentioned a couple of times that, of course, Holly knows Chloe, of course, and has visited her, I think, in New York over the past few years. So it'll be interesting to sort of see that relationship when they bring Nadia back to the show. Fingers crossed that is hopefully soon. And yeah, we'd love to see the character of Nicole come back too. So yeah, this friendship is not over. It continues, and hopefully we will see some more examples of it soon. But yeah, just kind of wanted to take a trip down memory lane. I think one of the things we always talk about that we're actually seeing right now, thankfully, is the show getting back to doing friendship storylines and just showing the connectiveness between people that isn't romantic. And we are finally getting a lot of that happening now. So yeah, big kudos to the new writers for that. But yeah, we'd love to see these two OGs sort of come back and give us some more of that friendship. So yeah, that was this week's Those Are the Days Extended, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.
Those were the